John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, then and now. We are now covering June of 1989, listening to clips of the original broadcast of Pro Wrestling Spotlight, the full shows available for patrons of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, and discussing the behind-the-scenes stories and what was going on. And we actually just had some audio on this week's show, Jim, of John's second visit to New Haven, the second NWA show up there. And he had a lot of interviews with a lot of different people.
That got over like a fart in church, too, every time the NWA went to New Haven, Connecticut. I'm not knocking John. He was a bright spot, but boy, they didn't want to see us in New Haven, especially when Turner took over.
And apparently the people that were there really did not like family man Ricky Steamboat at that point in 1989, from what I understand. But John did a bunch of interviews backstage, some really great stuff that's on this week's show. Teddy Long and Norman, Michael Hayes with Jimmy Garvin, David Sammartino calls in, and then there was also this conversation he had on the show with you. It's your very first appearance on John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight. So let me play a little bit of audio for you, Jim.
Now, we had interviewed Jim and Paulie. Now, this is what happened during the interview that I had with Jim Cornette 2 nights ago in New Haven, Connecticut. We were talking to him. In the middle of our conversation, Paulie ran out of the dressing room and grabbed the microphone and threw the tape recorder down on the floor. You'll hear it as it happens. And right now, let's go to my interview with Jim Cornette. Then we're going to speak to Paulie Dangerously about the whole situation. Thanks a lot. On tour with the Great American Bash, John Anthony from the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, here with one of the most colorful wrestling managers in the history of the sport, Jim Cornette. Jim, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing just fine, and of course I'm still colorful, as you can see from my tie. Golly, color just dripping, oozing from my body at this very moment in time.
Well, on a somber note here, you had some rough luck at the Clash 7. Everyone had picked the Midnight Express once they had gotten that close to win the titles. Paulie Dangerously with that vicious sneak attack. This guy just keeps coming after you.
Well, Paulie Dangerously is a sneak. Paulie's a coward. Paulie wouldn't even come up to me. I've never beaten anybody in my life. He wouldn't even come up to me to my face. He had to do it from behind. That shows you what kind of guy Paulie Dangerously is. We would have had the free birds. We had him in the final match. If we would have had him, we would have taken the World Tag Team Championship. If it hadn't been for Paulie coming behind, knocking me out with that loaded tennis racket. He can't even think of his own weapons, for heaven's sake. He's got to steal stuff I've been doing for years. He's a cheap imitation of me is all he is. So then, as a result, I was knocked out. I wasn't able to be at ringside. Terry Gordy, the third Freebird, was at ringside. Now, of course, I can't match up to Terry Gordy.
Well, you couldn't watch your boys back.
If I'd have been there just to yell, look out at the right minute, the whole result of the thing would have been different. So Paulie, I think, cost us the World Tag Team Championship, but I blame myself because I should have got rid of the Geek a long time before now. So I went to the NWA and I asked him for a match. Not even a match, a fight. We can't wrestle. We're going to fight each other. One time, July 23rd in Baltimore at the Great American...
That's already been said.
It's already been signed. It's going to be on pay-per-view television all across the country. It's one fall, anything goes, brother. A fight between me and Paulie Dangerously, and once and for all, I'm going to give him the beating he's had coming for about 6-8 months now.
Well, it's going to be an interesting fight, to say the least. I'm sure that the fans in Baltimore and the pay-per-view audience can look forward to that finally. You two in the ring alone.
Well, I think interesting is going to be the word, because obviously it's not going to be a classic wrestling match, and also obviously it ain't going to last long, but it's going to be real interesting while it does go on. And I'll tell you what, if, like I've said before, but it bears repeating, if there's one person in the world that I know that I can whip, it's got to be Paulie Dangerously.
Oh, here he is. He's coming right up. There was more after that.
Starting already.
Okay, let's go right back. Shut the tent.
Well, I'm gonna stop it right there, Jim. You can hear there's a lot going on.
Well, yeah, I remember Goofball Heyman came out because he was mad, as usual, because I was getting talked to first because I was a bigger star than he was back then and always have been. And he grabbed obviously they clipped some of the audio there because he grabbed a thing and he threw it down. I think he might have broke the microphone. Arezzi was John Anthony. That was his assumed name back then. Was upset about the whether his tape recorder is broken or not, and then Paulie runs off like a little, skipping away like the little bitch that he always was. Didn't want to stay there and fight. Didn't want to confront me again face to face. But nevertheless, you can hear more of that stuff. But I've got one question for you, Brian. Is there a pitch control on John's tapes? We all sound like Alvin the Chipmunk from 30 years ago.
You were 30 years younger. You did sound a little more.
No, we'd all sound like Alvin the Chipmunk just snorted a line of meth too. You know, there's a little fucking. Just a little, it's cassette tape, folks, in a digital world. So anyway, but yes, that's on his program.
Hear more of Alvin snorting meth this week on John
Okay, then put the clip up me talking about shaving my balls, but instead label it Alvin the Chipmunk snorts meth, and you won't have any trouble.
Well, we'll see about that. But hear more about all this, as well as Paulie Dangerously's response after he ran off after smashing John Arezzi's tape recorder.
Oh, the one that he phoned in? The one that he, like the phone's ringing in the background right now? I can't get people to leave me alone. The one he phoned in instead of coming up to our face and saying it.
Well, you can hear more of that at pwspod.com or search for John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight then and now